this series, but don't worry, we're going to unpack this a little bit more during August as well. So if you haven't seen the first 4 of these, please go back. You can go to our expertise platform, and they're all there pre-recorded for you, or you can find them on Facebook Live and you can go view them there. If you're stuck, then give me a call and we'll help you out. So good afternoon, my name is Bruce Wade. I'm your master storyteller, entrepreneur coach, and guide for this. So what we're going to do, we're going to sum everything up and we're going to put everything back into place. So just for the folks that are online, hi. If you can just say hi on the chat and let us know that everything's working fine, and then we can get going. Just checking all the instruments, and we're A for away and off. So let's get cracking with this and unpack a little bit about where we are. So what we've done over the last 4 weeks, is that we've looked at what is a business story, where we're going to use it. We've unpacked the business character, your product characters. We understood your client personas, and we looked at all the different areas on how to create a persona for your client. And then we put together the story theme, the plots and the structure, and we then showed you how to do the hero's story. The hero story is a fixed formula that we're going to do. And today I just want to go over that briefly, and I've got some stories just to prove that it does work. And we're going to tell you some stories that we have done with ourselves and with some of our clients. And then you can see some examples of that. So let's plow on, because I know time is against us. So that's what the storyboard looks like. It's a kind of multi-block thing, and we've ticked all the boxes that we've done there. We've done everything that we need to. And really what we need to do is we need to build the story in that. So this is a block that we use. We print it out on big paper, and we then fill it in with post-it notes, these little colored notes, and we write on them, and we peel them off, and we stick them on where they need it. And so we tell the story. We use that together with the story cards, which I've shown you a number of times, and they come in a pack like this. And we finally got our final packs back from the printers, so we got a product now that we can actually use and sell. And if you're interested in that, let me know, and we can come and engage with you. But using these cards and using the framework, we begin to tell the story. So what is the story? Well, it comprises of a number of things. The first thing is, what is the moral of the story? And we defined last week as the moral of the story is why the hero did what he did to get what he got and what he learned along the way. And it's quite a mouthful, but you unpack that, and that's the thing that people walk away. That's the emotion that you want to invoke as you walk away. Now, combining this with the 5 senses marketing module that we do, that we'll come back to later in August, is that unpacking. How do you make your stories more emotional? So we're going to tell you some stories today, but they kind of border on that. But we want to invoke emotion, because the greater the emotion in the story, the greater the remembrance and the retelling of that story, and word of mouth marketing happens. So that's where we're going to get. So we start with the moral of the story. We choose all the different characters that we have, and we unpack those, and we start putting them together, and we now got a number of stuff out of those characters. Then we choose our main 3 characters. We've got the hero, and we've got the princess. The hero could be it's the hero of the story. It could be a thing, it could be a product, or it could be a person. The princess, again, could be the ultimate goal. It could be a person, it could be an achievement, it could be a thing. And then the person that stands in between your hero getting to the princess is the villain, and that's the kind of anti-hero, and he then is equal to the hero, but in the opposite side, different agenda, and he does everything possible to throw obstacles in the way. And that's your classic kind of story that's with that. And the hero can only be a hero because there's a princess, and the villain can only be a villain because there's a hero wanting to get to the princess. and that's how we unpack it. And there's false heroes and false villains, and the princess can be the villain in the end, and the villain can turn out to be the hero. And there's so many different variations of that, and so we unpack the story and peel back the layers of complexity. So that's the formula for a basic story. It's called the hero's journey. It's what they base a lot of the Hollywood scripts on, and you'll find that this is taught at movie script writing schools across the world, and a lot of plays are on this and stories. And we've adapted this to be able to say, well, what about the verbal story? Where's that verbal story? How does that work? Where does that come in then? Can you use the structure for verbal story? And the answer is yes, of course. And it's not just a story you can make up and do that. You follow those correct patterns, you follow the structure, and whether you're writing an hour-and-a-half movie script or telling a 90-second story, this formula works. It's proven, and it creates a whole lot of emotion. So let's break that down for you just quickly again. It's a 12 acts, 12 part stories, 12 different beats, and they split into 3 different acts. So Act 1 starts off once upon a time. Okay, and good stories always start with once upon a time. You don't necessarily need to use those words, but what that does is it sets the scene. This is the status quo where we're at. And within that status quo, every day, these are the things that happen until one day. And this is your first inciting moment. This is the stuff that changes the every day in Once Upon a Time. And it could be a phone call, it could be an accident, it could be good or bad. It doesn't always have to be a bad thing. You could win the lottery, or you could fall in love, or you could get a new job. And that's that incident that then changes the everyday Once Upon a Time scenario. So people then are able to move on. And that then creates the reason for Act 2. Because if until one day didn't happen, then you would just stay once upon a time. Every day they did, and they lived happily ever after. But stuff happens in life, and this is the stuff. That then takes us to Act 2. So Act 2 is a cycle of growth for the hero and the different characters. So you introduce different characters at each cycle. And it could be a wise guru, it could be the magician, it could be the wizard, it could be the that wise sort of person that comes in there and is able to whisper wisdom of encouragement, or the teacher that comes and educates the hero. And so your hero goes through the trials of understanding the story, getting to a point where they are able to grow and eventually get to a point where they are now beyond the point of no return. So they cannot go back to Once Upon a Time because circumstances have changed, they've changed, relationships have changed, and the whole world, once upon a time, every day, cannot exist anymore because of what he's learned. He's outgrown, or he's outshed, or once upon a time has been obliterated by a war, or killed, or whatever it is, that story there. But once upon a time is now gone and forgotten, and he gets to the point of no return. And because of that, then we get to Act 3. And Act 3 starts off, well, until finally one day, and this talks about our hero's journey, about finally one day, what he does with what he's learned and going back to where he came from. And now every day is changed now to ever since then, this has happened. So you've changed the status quo. It's been the paradigm shift from A to B because of that first incident and his growth period, and then you get to that. So if you just think of every single story that you've read or every single movie that you've seen, it follows the same pattern with the exception of like 5%, which are this crazy Woody Allen movies. So unpacking that, let's just look at that. What is your story? What is your story of your company? What is the story of your clients? What are the story that you're telling your clients? What is the story that your brand is portraying out to the market? Does it have a meaning? Or is it just all about me, 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 me? Because most advertising and most marketing that we coming across is all about the brand. It's a brand, it's a brand, it's a brand, it's a brand. Or what they're doing is they're telling meaningless, unrelated stories. They've got nothing to do with the brand. And I want to refer to some of the banking and insurance and investment adverts that we have on TV, that they tell this beautiful thought-invoking thing about a fisherman going out there, or this person learning to walk and this person overcoming, and then at the end they like shock you and say, oh, this investment company, or this bank. And you actually go into the bank or you engage with a brand and they're so unrelated stories. That is completely separated. If you tell a story, it's got to be about your brand. It's got to be a real story that people can relate. And it's not just some story about, oh, these guys learned how to drive a Mercedes-Benz faster than any race, and, oh, this is what we do, ta-da, and there's no connection. And if you watch some of those adverts, I think they're getting them wrong. And I'm not running down any brand, I'm just running down their advertising agency, because clearly they're selling stuff and all warm and fuzzy, but it's unrelated. It doesn't invoke action around it. People are more interested in the story than the brand at the end. And if you think of some of those emotional adverts that we see locally, try think of the brand that's related to it. I mean, you're going to struggle because you're not there. And if you're from the brands, yeah, maybe it's time to do something about those. So let's unpack that a little bit later. We've got story plots there, because having a layout, all that sort of stuff, you've got to learn how to tell your story. So we have story plots, and there's a number of them, and we went through them last week. The story cards have got a card for each of these. They explain the usage, the bad, the good, and how, where you can use these for. So going through that, you can match your stories, you can match your character brand and your company brand to the correct story type. And now we're getting there. And the last thing is that story format. How do you tell your story? And you can tell the same story in so many different ways. And here's just a list of them. We got the mountain, converging ideas, sparklines, nested loop, in media res, petal, and a false start. And we'll play with some of those as we tell you some stories with that. So we bringing it all together, and we got there. And we want to add a little bit of emotion and a little bit of fun there. And so all this gets plugged into your storyboard. And you're then from that able to tell a really good related story. Easy, hey? Okay, so I've just had a guy in my office, literally half an hour ago, and he's selling internet software that's amazing stuff. And they tell stories, and they call them, you load a story, and when you SMS, you get this one, and then you get that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And he pulled out his like card pack, and we were chatting and things like that. And all of a sudden, I showed him my cards and his cards. They just merged together. And all of a sudden, because he knows the power of stories, and they've got all this great software to tell stories, and we've got the story framework, and it's a perfect marriage. So really great meeting, and yeah, I'm super excited about where my morning's going and where we're going. So we need to engage him a little bit later. We're going to meet him again tomorrow, and so we can unpack this. And I believe that everybody has a story to tell. And if you go to our blog, I wrote an article this morning that went up on our website, and just looking at the power of stories, and where's your story, what's your brand story, what's your personal story, how do they intermingle. And your story of your company needs to be really good. But let's just go back to where we were when we started the series. And the first thing I said in kind of episode 1 a month ago is that I said you might have a story, and it might be a really good story, and it might be filled with emotion and told in the correct way, but nobody cares about your story. Okay, why is that? Why don't we care about other people's stories? Why don't we care about the other company stories? Well, it's simple, is that people do not care about other people's stories because everybody is so busy living their own story. And that's the issue. That's the issue. Is that I'm so busy. As soon as I open up my eyes and my feet hit the floor in the morning, I'm living my story. I've got my life. I've got my family. I've got my company. I've got my gender. And I've got my friends. And that's my story. And that's the story I'm living. I do not have time to get involved in other people's stories. And that's the reaction you're going to get from 90% of the population, with the exception of the psychiatrists and the rest of the head shrink people and life coaches and all that, who have to because they get paid. What they draw on their little notepad is completely different. But they get paid to listen to other people's stories. Marketing agencies are paid to create stories, but they often get it wrong. So how do you engage that? How do you get your story of your company important enough for other people to know about and engage with? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. And if every agency in the world could listen to the next 5 seconds, it's simple. Is that make your brand story part of your client's story. It's simple. All right, so listen to some of the stories, and I'm just going to give you a few examples of stories here. And these are not rehearsed. I've kind of put these together. I'm going to try remember them as we've created them, because these are some of the clients we've worked with over the last couple of months to develop the stories. And I got asked by a loan company yesterday if we could tell stories for a loan company. I'm going, of course we can. You know, how unemotional is a loan company, but looking at how we can do these and these techniques, we can even make a financial institute and an accounting and a law firm and a loan company exciting and engaging, because it has the potential to get it right. Okay, you ready? Let me tell you some stories. Medical aid. You can tell the story of medical aid and you can go, welcome to Medical Aid A. We sell medical aid and we sell hospital plan, and we got 3 different levels for the poor, the medium, and the super rich. And then we got a special one for the professional sports people. And you pay monthly and you'll claim, and we got a beautiful help desk, and it's awesome. Phone us. All right. And that just sucks because we don't care. But here's a story. Jack. He was 23 years old, active sports person, had dreams of turning professional in his sport, had just finished university, got drafted into the team that he had followed since he was 6 years old. He was on the plane to go join the team when he noticed that his neck was a bit stiff and his shoulder hurt quite a bit. He just rubbed it off and said, it's clearly from carrying my bag and the stress of getting the new job. When he landed in the new town, his neck was a little stiffer and his shoulder was a little sore. He went to practice anyway and thought he'd work it off like he had so many other times before. But then the pain got worse. He went to see the team doctor, who immediately rushed him to hospital. And they realized that it wasn't just stiffness. He was actually quite sick. He was young, and medical aid, he didn't even bother about that. He hadn't signed his contract with the sports team. He was off his parents' medical aid, and he was independent and free, and he would rather spend his money on things for instant gratification. Jack spent 2.5 years in and out of hospital, different procedures. It was the end of his professional sports career. The operations left his arm a little lame, his neck still sore, but at least they'd saved his life. He had spent everything he had. He had taken loans out against everything. His car that he had saved for 2 years to buy and still had money to pay off, he had to sell. Jack now lives back with his parents and often spends weekends at friends who help him out. But it's going to take Jack 15 years to regain his financial independence. He now works in an office at a clerical job because his right arm is not that good for typing. If Jack had medical aid, Jack would have been playing professional sports today. Interesting story. Okay, you see the power of telling stories. You see the power of emotion. You see the understanding of that. So here's another one, a famous organ donor organization, and I see they've got a fundraising later on this month. So here's a pitch. We had them in a workshop, and they said that beautiful story. A young girl was born sick. Her mother and father spent months sitting next to the incubator when she was younger, looking, waiting, watching her breathe with all the machines and the pipes. The doctors didn't give her much hope. They said 3 to 5 years maximum. The parents were so focused that they were going to give their child everything that they could. Every day would be a special day. And even if she only lived to 3 or 5 years old, she would live a lifetime. And the parents gave that commitment to them. Cost wasn't an issue for them because they had resources, but energy and time and support was. On the other side of the town was a young man. He was never sick. He didn't really care. He was just an average guy. He had a job, he had a car, he had a girlfriend, and he used to go out for beers and watch sport on the weekend. And he walked past a stand one day at a fair, and someone stuffed a little envelope, a brochure, into his hand and said, "Help us out." He looked at it and it said a little bit about blood donation, bone marrow donation. So he said, whatever, let's sign up. And he signed a form and he filled it in. A week later, they called him for a test. It took 10 minutes. They took some blood, he filled in a form, and he left. And he felt good because now he had a little card that he could carry around with him to say he had done his good part, never thinking that they would call him. 6 months later, he got a little SMS and an email followed by a phone call that his blood group, his blood type, and everything they had matched, and he could help somebody. It wouldn't be a hard procedure. It would be a couple of hours and it would be over and done with. He cancelled his afternoon date with his friends, went into the hospital, and they stuck a couple of needles in them, and it was slightly uncomfortable, but he felt good afterwards. That bone marrow went to that little girl, and at the age of 3, when she was literally 18 months away from death, saved that girl's life. Today, that little girl and the guy have met a couple of times, and they're good friends. And he's a good friend of the family, and this little girl will live a fulfilled life, a happy life, and a healthy life, because one day a guy took a pamphlet from a stall at a craft market. Powerful stories, right? Isn't it amazing? I see we're running out of time, having far too much fun here. An all-night pharmacy that we worked with, there's so many different stories about sick mothers and, coughing and spluttering all night, and the mother gets in her car and drives through the rain looking for a pharmacy, and there's the lights up on the hill, and she drives to the pharmacy, seeing that it's open 24 hours a day, parks, runs from her car in the rain, gets in the pharmacy, and there's somebody there who cares, who knows about sick kids, and they were able to get the right medicine. And eventually, the end of the story is the mom curled up on the bed with her little baby huddled in her arms, sleeping soundly, healthy, who've survived the night. Now, if you're a parent and a mother, you can understand the stresses of having a sick child. This all-night pharmacy, 24 hours a day, they've got over 300 staff at this pharmacy, and they do amazing work. I've used them a couple of times. Phenomenal brand, and so full of emotional stories and so full of stuff. We don't care that they contracted to medical aid and they got a travel clinic and they got this and this and this. What matters is the stories that connect us through illness and through hard times, with the hero being the 24-hour pharmacy, in turn making the mom the hero who's able to bring and nurse her child back to life. So full of amazing, amazing things. So we had this one client who sells concrete blocks, bricks. Absolutely amazing. How on earth do you make an emotional story about concrete retainer bricks and blocks? So what we did is we told the story, and it starts off with a family sitting in the garden, and they've just moved into their new house, and the garden's a mess, and the little dog's running around up and down, and he's chewing, and he's getting muddy, and he's getting into trouble, and the dog is not happy because everywhere he goes he just wants to sniff and explore, but everyone keeps shouting at him. And the mom and the dad start drawing up plans, and they involve the kids, and they say, what else do you want around your garden? What about this? What about this? And the little girl suddenly looks up and says, Mom, don't forget the dog. And so they go back to their planning, and they draw and they scale and things. And then the movie, the short video, fades to the end, and you see the happy family sitting around their pool. Kids are splashing on the step, and the mom comes out with a tray of drinks and a pan across to the dad, who's now braaiing at his new braai made out of the bricks. And the garden's beautifully done, beautiful retainer wall done with their bricks, and the pool is paved around the edge with their bricks. And you don't have to say anything about the bricks, because it just shows the beauty and what you can do out of a mess of a mud pool into a beautiful garden. And then you fade across to the dog, who's got his own little cove with his own little bed, and he's sitting in the sun chewing his fluffy toy. And it says, our bricks make families happy. Isn't that amazing? Just some really stuff. And if we can do that with bricks, we can do that with any company. These are all marketing stories. We've got rapid testing kits that we're working with a client at the moment. We've got a beautiful story of this little village on the edge of a river. And once upon a time there was a little kid down by the river, and they were just playing, and they were smearing mud in their faces and stuff. And the kid gets sick, and there's the grandpa and the grandmother and the mother who's away. And so we can tell the story about this little village on the edge of a river. And only through rapid testing of the water are they able to diagnose what's wrong with the water, and they're able to fix not only the little girl, but the entire village and everybody downstream because of the rapid test. And absolutely amazing there. We've got wonderful things about Speechcraft, and people need to do sales presentations, and they go on a Speechcraft course, and how they overcome their anxiety and are able to put that all together. And so we've got so many different amazing stories that all come together, and it's not hard with a little guidance and with a little framework to come and put your brand on the map. And we're able to do that. And stories are a true essence of our culture. Stories bring people together, but stories help people remember. And you're going to remember some of the stories that I've told you. And you're going to remember this, and you're going to come back and say, I want to tell the story of my business. I want to tell the story of my brand. Let's put it together. Let's make it happen. And let's create effective, good marketing that doesn't look like some dog's breakfast with some ad agencies that are only interested in facts and figures and features of your business. Marketing is changing, and we need to change with it. And people's needs out there are changing, and we need to change with it. If you're not on this bus, you are going to be left behind. Join us and get hold of me. My name's Bruce Wade, and you can get hold of me on any of those things. We're based in Cape Town, Woodstock, but hey, we've got computers, we can travel, we can come and chat to you anywhere, anytime. Come and chat to us and learn how to tell true stories that are going to change the face of your business. We're out of time. It's 12:30. We will see you at the next webinar in 2 weeks' time, when we unpack some of the emotions within a story and emotions in key marketing. We'll chat later. I'm going to hang around on this platform. If you want to ask any questions, you most certainly can. Otherwise, you can review this back on Facebook. It's going to be back on our blog or back on Expertise in about 40 minutes time, so you can come back and view it. Good sharing the day with you. Have an awesome day. Keep dry, keep warm wherever you are.